right. All right, so we're going to look at part one today, imperialism and America. So Americans have always been obsessed with expanding the size of our nation. And by the 1880s, many American leaders have become convinced that the U.S. should join the imperialist powers of Europe and establish colonies overseas. All right. And the word imperialism means the policy in which stronger nations extend their economic, political, or military control over weaker territories. Europe has been establishing colonies for centuries. Okay, the United States used to be a colony of Europe. Okay, from Great Britain and France and part of Spain. Florida used to be part of Spain, and so forth. Well, recently they've been colonizing Africa and other parts of Asia in the Pacific. Africa became a prime target due to new products that help prevent mosquitoes from biting. So they reduced the spread of malaria. And before, they would only go 100 miles into the coast of Africa, from the inside the coast of Africa, because it was too dangerous to go any farther. Okay? And all of Africa was taken over in the 19th century, with the exception of Ethiopia and Liberia. Ethiopia was they defeated the French from taking over, and Liberia was a country created by America for freed slaves after after the War of 1812. They also competed in Asia, China. All right, so imperialism is not a new idea. All right, if you remember Manifest Destiny from 8th grade, then you learned about the idea that the U.S. had the right to expand from one end of the continent to the other. Okay, and so that's kind of been the expansion rate, is focusing on the continental U.S. That's kind of what you learned about in 8th grade. Well, now we're looking at outside of the U.S. and essentially America is going to have its own little mini empire, but we're going to have influence in a lot of different places. So three factors will fuel American imperialism. One is a desire for military strength. A second is for wanting new markets. And three is for belief in cultural superiority. Alright, desire for military strength. Military expansion of European powers will lead the U.S. to do the same. So we have people like Admiral Alfred T. Mahan, who writes a book called The Influence of Sea Power in History. And with his book, he argues that the greatest empires all had a powerful navy that could control the seas. And so he urges the American government to begin building up its naval power. So between 1883 and 1890, the United States builds 9 steel-hulled cruisers, and we become the third. And by the end of the century, we are the third largest naval power in the world. Second is thirsting for new markets. So overproduction in the U.S. is going to lead to the view that factories needed raw materials from abroad. We don't need to just get raw materials from in the U.S. We might as well expand the market and make it more of a global economy. And so surplus U.S. products will be needed to be sold in new markets, and imperialists thought this is a solution to help fix unemployment and depression situations. Alright, belief in cultural superiority. So cultural factors were also used to justify imperialism. Things like social Darwinism, the idea of survival of the fittest. We've talked about this before in relation to business, or big business. Belief in the racial and cultural superiority of Anglo-Saxons. And that the U.S. had a responsibility to expand and spread Christianity and civilization to the world's inferior people. Now, these are very dangerous things in a lot of ways. One of the things is very clear in the Constitution that church or separation of church and state or religion and the government. Okay, that is supposed to be separate, but yet this idea that the U.S. had this moral responsibility to spread Christianity is dangerous. Okay, the idea of the superiority of Anglo-Saxons, that's basically white English people. Alright, white English-speaking people. Alright. Alright, the United States acquires Alaska in 1867. You notice here, it's huge. I mean, it covers a huge mass of the United States. It's bigger than Texas. Yes, I know that's hard to believe, but Alaska is the largest state in the country. Texas is number two. All right. William Seward, he was the Secretary of State for Presidents Lincoln and President Johnson. And in 1867, he helped buy Alaska from Russia for $7.2 million, which is 2 cents an acre. And some thought it was silly, that this was a dumb idea. But Seward was always one, he was trying to think ahead. By having this land, that essentially we have this huge, rich access to two things: timber, well, three things: timber, natural gases, and oil. You notice I have pictures. Here's trees here. Got an oil pipeline there. All right, but a lot of people thought this was silly. Why are we buying this land that's so far away, and that to get to it by land you have to cross through British Canada? Okay, Canada at this time was still part of the British Empire. All right, and yet in 1959, Alaska will become a state. All right, what about Hawaii? Well, Hawaii was a protectorate. All right, this is a separate country whose affairs are partially controlled by a stronger power. In this case, they were partially controlled by the U.S. Hawaii became a protectorate in 1849, and they established a military naval base there, known as Pearl Harbor. Yes, the same one that will be attacked by the Japanese in 1941. This became the kingdom's best port. All right, so we have the leader in the late 19th century is Queen Liliuokalani. She is a devout Christian, and she cares deeply for Hawaiians. But one of the things, the Hawaiian government had its own, I believe its own written document or constitution that explained how it worked and all that. And she proposed removing property requirements from voting. And when businesses began to organize a revolution against her because of that, and they didn't like that, well, with the help of the U.S. Marines, they helped overthrow the Queen. Well, the president at this time, Grover Cleveland, was refused to consider annexation. He said that he would annex the territory after her throne was restored, officially. So McKinley, when he becomes president in 1997, he favors annexation and makes it an official territory in 1898. And then also later, in 1959, Hawaii becomes the 50th state. Okay? Alright. Alright, and we're going to stop here.